So I'm here to talk to you guys about a topic that's caused like a lot of argument over the years, and a lot of people really don't know what exactly it is. So we tagged it this way so it make more sense to you. So it's UX research checklist, encompassing everything that should inform the next product launch. So this has been like, in fact, I think there was even a rage on social media last week on this topic, and in fact, it was a little bit difficult to like kind of gather information, fit it in a slide, because I mean, the time is not even enough to talk about this topic. But what I'll try and do is I'll try and cover as much as I can so that everyone will at least get something before you guys get bored of me anyway. So, but before I go, so let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Abayomi, unpopularly known, sorry, as Pixeldan, and I work as I'm also a front end engineer. I don't know if a few people only know that, and as well I'm a UX researcher and a UI designer. Everything also. Anyway, so before we go deeply into what UX research is, let's start from the foundation, which is user experience design. I mean, what is UX? I'm sure this question has come, and people would like to define UX in different manner. And there's the confusing part where we tend to like don't we can't really place what it is. And this question has erupted a lot of argument, and a lot of beginners don't really know what it is. So I felt like, okay, let me address this first before moving into the nitty gritty of the entire conversation tonight. So according to the Interaction and Design Foundation, popularly known as IDF, they defined UX design as, they said this involves the design of the entire process of acquiring and integrating the product, including aspects of branding, design, usability, and function. Now that is, I don't know, it might sound a little bit complex, but then I got another definition which simplifies all what they said there. And this is by our design daddy, the Michael Jackson of UX, Don Norman. I'm sure a lot of people, you guys would probably know him. So he defined UX as, he said, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its service, and its product. Now, you see, if you notice from this, I didn't exactly they didn't exactly say anything about digital product. There was nothing. There was no reference to that. So essentially, UX applies to anything that can be experienced. So it's either you are designing a website, you're designing a coffee machine, a rechargeable lamp, a rechargeable fan, or a visit to a supermarket. You are feeling something, and that is the experience. So the user experience part always refer to the interaction between the user and the product or a service. Now, user experience design now means that it's defining every element that shapes an experience. So I think a lot of people just aligns user experience to digital product. I mean, there's the product first before the digital, but because of English, we say digital product. So it's a product to be anything, either tangible or intangible. You just have to like be able to define, design an experience for it. Anyway, so there's this popular saying that that I've heard for a while now, and it says there's only one boss, like one boss, and that boss is the customer. Now, the boss, the said person, can fire everybody in a company, from the chairman down to all the stakeholders, to the board, to the shareholders, simply by spending money elsewhere. And this is a quote gotten from Sam Walton. So this is the boss. This is the ultimate boss. the customer. I mean, you might probably have your supervisor at work or the likes or a client, but your main boss is the customer because this is the defining factor. This person that defines every single thing that has to do with your product. Now, let's move a little bit to something else. Now, when you're dealing with, when we say the customer is the boss, most of the times, these people slap this, I mean, this word everywhere: cognition, human cognition, mental models, this, everything, bass, and it's sometimes you get tangled in between the what's it called? You get tangled in between the terminologies and complexity of UX, and you're like, oh God. Tomorrow you wake up and one person is talking about something and you don't understand it, and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, I need meaning, I need sense, I need to make sense of all these things. Now, human cognition, which I'll define as the mental model. Now, I want to align this with a story so that you guys really understand it with a real life scenario. Now, in 2016, early 2016, Fiat Chrysler, I don't know if you guys know the brand. There's a brand of a car of automobile called Chrysler. Now, Chrysler recalled 1.1 million vehicles due to a new shifter design known as rocket switch gear shift. Now, the gear shift, what it really means is the gear you use in your car, like your normal gear. Now, they recalled it. When we say recall, it means they had to like redesign, or they had to like scrap it off and reproduce new ones, or they just end the entire model and start afresh. So they recalled 1.1 million. And one of the reasons is, in fact, this played a huge part in the death of a popular actor. I don't know if you are used to watching Star Trek, you know this guy. His name is Anton Yelchin. He died around 2016 as well. And he died because of this car, this particular model of car, the Chrysler 2016 model, and he killed the guy. Now I'll explain how he died from this. So there's a YouTube video. I'll share the slides right after the call, or maybe on Twitter or something. So you guys can click on this link below here to watch the video on how they analyzed the error in the design. Now this is the rocket gear shift I was talking about. Now the way this works is, it looks pretty, right? I mean, it's sexy, but then it's one thing for something to look and to have aesthetic appeal. It's another thing for it to, I mean, to function, or to make sense. It might function, but it's one thing for it to actually make sense. Now, the way it works is, you click on that button, the button at the left, and you click on it with your thumb. Now, then you pull either upward or downward. Now, if you push it upward, it moves to park, or reverse, or neutral, or maybe drive. Now, it returns immediately. You do that, it returns back to the center. Now, let's go back to the conventional, the one we know about, the manual gear that everybody's familiar to. When you push it to the front, it stays there. It stays at the park. When you pull it backward, you reverse or something. And people are so used to it that they don't even have to look at the gear when they're driving. I mean, it's your mental model already, your muscle memory already knows what it is. Then all you just do is you drive around. So, I mean, you know how to drive your car, there's no issue. Now, the issue with this is, number one, it's the only kind of indicator or feedback it gives you is the indicator light, which is either it's on park, on reverse, on neutral, or on drive. Now, that indicator light is everything actually illuminates at the same time. So for you to find out which particular gear shift you were on at that point, the light will illuminate brighter than the other ones. Now, there are a lot of factors that can limit the experience for this. There's color blindness, there's you driving in the sun, you can't really see light because it might only be effective in dark places. And I'm sure in your mind, you're wondering why a famous car brand would do this kind of mistake. I mean, why? So I actually have no idea because I was not the designer anyway. But so now, even the another limitation to this is, while you are using it, because your thumb will be covering most of the areas where the light is, you don't really see what gear you're in, and there's no feedback like that. So this is what happens. Now, people were getting out of their cars thinking that the shifter was in park to then have the car drive off without them. So imagine you park your car and you get out and your car is just moving, or you're on a steep hill and your car doesn't move down. Now that was what resulted to the death of Anton. He parked his car in his house, thinking he has parked it, only for the car to reverse and rammed him to his fence. So he rammed into his fence and he died. Now, I mean, when I read the story, I was like, why? Why would this happen? But the crazy part of everything is that is not even the crazy part. The crazy part is this has caused over 100 crashes, 40 injuries, and these are just the ones that we accounted for. I'm sure there are a lot of ones that wasn't even said, wasn't reported or something. So I always imagine. But now this is the official statement Chrysler gave. They said gear selection is conveyed to the driver by multiple sets of indicator lights, not gear selector position. And unless due care is taken, drivers may draw erroneous conclusions about the state of their vehicles. All this does translate to the company blaming the user, saying this is driver error. They're saying that they owe no responsibility for this and it is your mistake. I mean, if you design a product and your users do not understand that product, or you design a product and it is a design problem, it is not a user problem. So our job mostly as designers is to try and reduce as much user problem as possible. I mean, sometimes it might be their error, it might be their mistake. But then your job is to anticipate those mistakes and create a solution for them. And if you can't create a solution for them, create an escape route for them, an emergency exit for them. All these things are our basic heuristic analysis that we've learned over the years. Now, Chrysler said this, which is really, I mean, stuff. How would you say this? But anyway, so this was their fix. The first fix is they said they want to implement additional warning inside the car. Imagine. And the second fix is they said encourage users to read their manual. Like, I mean, come on, man. I'm sure you guys are probably shaking your head now, or you want to blow your screen. Please don't break your screen or anything. I experienced that same outrage. But then this does not fix anything. Okay, so let me move to the next part. Now, I was talking about mental models initially. So there are two differentiators for mental models. So I don't want to start any war between engineers and designers, or, I mean, but I'm going to cite an example right now. But this example is not geared at maybe invalidating anybody in the tech field. This is just me creating like an analogy for you to understand better. So there's something they call, so mental models are divided into two. There's the system model, which is how something works. So I put a quotation beside it so you understand it better. I mean, I know how a car works, but not how people drive the car. How people drive their car. At least I know how it works. I know, which is usually aligned with what engineers do most of the time. I mean, engineers, they have good system models. They know about it. They know, okay, I mean, the API calls, I'm sending a request to a server, I'm getting a response. Things like that, like blah, 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 blah. All this in work. But then, as opposed to system model, there's also the interaction model. Now, the interaction model says how to use something. So the quote here is, I'm a great driver, but I have no idea how my car works. Now, I don't know if you guys can see the difference. On the left side, it's saying, I know how a car works, but I don't know how to drive. I don't know how people drive their cars. Now, the interaction model is saying, I'm a great driver, but I have no idea how my car works. Now, where does the designer come in here? So like I said before, there's only one boss, which is the customer. Now, one thing you need to understand, so I'm going to make reference to those mental models I said initially, is an average customer prefers to be comfortable over being knowledgeable, which is the same thing as what Chrysler did. I mean, customer they don't care about knowing, oh, I want to know this, I have to read the manual. A lot of people don't even read their manual, which is why design has evolved. People don't need to read manuals before they learn how to use your system. I mean, your interface, or I mean, by interface, I don't really mean digital interface. It could be your physical product. It should be easy enough for people to actually learn by themselves. Now, you are obliged to add guides to it, because I mean, people's way people assimilate where people assimilate information differs from each other, and all these things we've seen it in school. Somebody's excelling in maths and I'm failing in maths, but I might do better in English than the other person. So all these things, our range of thinking differs from each other. Now, your job, like I said, let me go back here. I said, how do you come into this play? Now, your job as a UX designer is to bridge the gap between the users, which is the customers, and the builders, which are the engineers. So now, since the engineer understands the system model, and the users are supposed to use the interaction model, your job is to bridge the system model and the interaction model together to make a viable product. But sometimes there's a limitation to this, because we've had this argument over the years of, oh, should designers learn how to code? Should designers learn this, learn that? It has happened. But I'll give you my biased opinion right now, and I believe every designer should learn how to code. So even if you're not going into the nitty-gritty of coding, learning the intensity, I mean, you can't do it better as good as the engineers. But at least you should be able to understand some certain things, understand how the system works, how data is being transmitted from year to year. So if you really understand this, if you understand data structure, you understand how information architecture hierarchy works in terms of data centralization and all that, then it will help you inform how you can create a better experience and how you can balance the interaction model with the system model. Okay, let's move forward. Now, going back to what the picture I showed you before, this is a good system model. I mean, it works. There's probably a lot of engineering that came into this. They have to determine, oh, should we do this? It's a good system model, but it's a bad interaction model, because people had issues with this. Your customers, the moment they can't use your product, it is useless. Number one, your brand loses it loses its viability. It's people lose loyalty. You don't get loyal customers. Customer retention. There's high increase in churn rates and a lot of things like that. So as designers, if you guys notice, I'm not really using a digital product here, because I wanted you to understand that design is more than the digital product we see out there, the applications we see on our phones. Design is way more than that. All right, so how do you perform user research for insights account? I mean, that is the point of why we're here, actually. Understanding more of, okay, what should I do as a researcher or as a designer before I approach a project? Now, I'll take a direct quote from Ben Babcock. He's a director of research and insights at Jet.com, and says something. He said, when people build products, when people who build products are not in tune with the people who use them, big mistakes are made. Now, this is the same, making reference back to Chrysler, because they are my major case study today. He said big mistakes are made. I mean, you don't want to make mistakes. Mistakes are actually welcome most of the time. I mean, nobody's perfect anyway. But then what you should try and do is try and make sure the mistakes doesn't really come from your customers, from your users. Try and minimize the mistake. Try and minimize the friction. Try and minimize the accidents. Things like that. That's why you see they brought in traffic lights so that they can minimize accident. Doesn't mean the accident don't still happen. It still happens. But then at that point now, it is not happening because of the traffic lights. It's happening because of human error. So they brought in the traffic lights to reduce human error. But then it's like mistakes happen. But that's why I said, when you are building a product, make sure you're in tune with the people that will use them so that you really understand things from their point of view. Now, build for humans. As a designer, you will make a lot of assumptions. That is majorly our work. We make assumptions, which is fine. I mean, you have to go with your gut a lot of time. Somebody brings up a project to you, you're already thinking of the solution immediately. You go with your gut, you're like, okay, users want this. Now it's fine for you to assume. But then what research can help you do is it helps you to validate or debunk some of those assumptions with a human-first approach. Now, what this essentially means is it helps you involve the people that will actually use your product while you are building it. so that you know you are actually building for them and not just for yourself. Because a lot of companies, especially in our country here, we tend to do that. We just build solution, we put it out there in the market, and we think marketing will solve that problem. We will now start pushing people. Sometimes they even you see a lot of companies that come out with, oh, sign up and get 5,000 naira free of charge or something. All these things are good, right, in the business perspective. But then all those things really help. It helps with conversion. But if you check most of those applications or most of those products, at the end of the day, a lot of users tend to drop it because all they are really after, they are more of the business. Um, they are more focused on the business rather than actually solving the problem. So it's only ideological for you to involve the people you are building for. Now, so this is it. So I'm quoting myself. I'm quoting myself. Yeah. It is so important for every single member of the product team to understand their customers. Like, I mean, understand the customers you're building for. I mean, it's everybody's responsibility. Either you're an engineer, you're a UX designer, a UI designer, a marketer, a business analyst, a product manager, whatever it is that you are, as long as you're on the product team, it's your responsibility to really understand the user. I mean, you should know the people you guys are building for, because there's this perception that comes with, oh, designer should be the one. So anytime there's an issue with an application or something comes up, the first person they blame is the designer. I don't think that is really fair, because I mean, everybody should actually understand the customer so that everybody's aligned. Now, there are a lot of exercises that helps you um, determine how to align everybody with the goal of the project. Now, if everybody in the team understands the customer, because we, like I said, these days, okay, in fact, not even me, these days, most people align, there's this quote, let me just say this big word, human-centered design. Everybody seems to slap this word everywhere. Human-centered design this, human-centered design that. But then, what exactly is human-centered design? Because most people, even myself, I've made that mistake. I always align it to user testing, user research. That is all I know, what I know to be human-centered design. But then, if we talk about human-centered design, we have to really talking about the human being. I mean, who is the human being? What is a human? There are a lot of things that makes up a human being. There's complexity, there's emotions, there's inclusion, rationality, form, cognition, accessibility, function, delight. A lot of things that encompasses and make up a particular human. So when we are designing, we are not designing because people don't really understand it. They say, oh, human-centered design. What you're really designing are all these things. You're designing for complexity, you're designing for disability, you're designing for emotions, rationality, inclusion, function, accessibility, form, delight, cognition, a lot of other things. Those are the things that makes up a human being, and those are what we are designing for. But most people just say, "Oh, human, we are designing for human," and all they just subject themselves to is user testing. Oh, the user understands it, no problem. As long as users can use it, use UX design, how things work. Or if the users can use it, it's fine. But design really goes beyond all that. Human-centered design, complexity of human being, everything that makes up a human being is what you are designing for. So now the steps to take when you are, because I don't want to go too far and digress so much. The steps you really take is, number one, you define the problem you're trying to solve. I mean, what is the need? So if you look at this, my ugly, I don't know what they call it, chart, whatever. It says user needs on the left and business goal on the right. Now, as a designer, what do? You're trying to bridge this gap. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a sweet spot. That part that makes everything juicy from the left to the right. I mean, the business people, they're happy. The users are happy. So that is what you're trying to do. In fact, that is like your sole purpose as a designer. It's because people just focus on the user part and they say, oh, it's the users. And they neglect the business. So so after you've defined your problem, which I said here, defining the problem you're trying to solve, the next thing here is, what does success look like? You need to define this from your early stage, because let me try and clear and make some light on this. I'm not saying you should already know exactly. I'm not saying you should know you have to know every single thing that encompasses your product. No, no, not at all. What I'm saying is you should at least have a goal. I mean, if I'm going to school today to learn, I have a goal. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to graduate, right? And there are a lot of things that are passed through in between school. So you should also know what success looks like. I mean, what are we trying to solve? What is the business goal? Once you understand what the business goal, I mean, set project goal. This is to help at least keep everybody on track on the business goal. So because we focus so much on solving user problem that we forget about the business goal. Our job as a designer, which is what I said, is to align business goal with users' needs. I mean, you must, because we keep talking about empathy and we don't show which our empathy is always one-sided. I mean, it's the user. Sometimes when you, I don't know if you guys even notice, maybe you start paying more attention to facial expression when you're in a stakeholders meeting. You see this, you keep talking about the user, and the stakeholders are like, what about us? Like, Kilashe, what do we do? Are we not? So you must show empathy for both sides. You can't be biased. You can't say, oh, because of it's only the user I care about, screw the business. No, the business as well. There's a business goal as to why this is being started. So you need to align the business goal with the user's need. Balance it. Take the user's need. What problem are you trying to solve? What solution are you guys bringing in the business? Okay, let's see how we can make this thing work. And that's when research comes in. Now, you also need to know how to do something. You need to know how to ask the right questions. This is really important. So our job as product innovators is to figure out what customers are going to want before it even exists. I mean, this is important. But the thing is, research helps you validate some of your assumptions. Why am I here again? Okay. I think I must have skipped something. Anyway, to ask the right question. I mean, Henry Ford said something. He said, if I had asked customers what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted a faster house. This is funny because it's tricky, right? Because we keep saying user research, ask the customer what the customer wants, make sure it is what the customer wants. But then sometimes the customer don't even know what they want, except you show, like, I mean, the customer don't know what they want. So Henry Ford, before they created the Ford, Fords that we know, the Ford car, automobile that we know. Sorry, you guys, sorry, give me a second. Pizza, yeah, something. So you guys give me, I apologize. Pick it, the pizza guy. I'm so sorry. I ordered pizza before this because I was famished. Yeah, pick it. Take my ATM. Pay with the UBA. All right. So apologies. Anyway, so Henry Ford said, if you had asked users what they wanted, they would have told him they wanted a faster house. I mean, was that really the problem? So people needed to move from a place to another place as fast as possible. But then if faster house, it probably would have solved the problem, right? Maybe they would have injected the horse with adrenaline and something or steroids, and the horse would be running. Maybe you're probably going from Abuja to Lagos, and it mistakenly takes you to Ondo State because the horse is on steroids. Do you understand? But then that was not exactly what they needed. Then Steve Jobs also said something. He said, "Give the customers what they want." He said, but that's not his approach. Like, it doesn't do that. I mean, our job is to figure out what they are going to want before they do. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's why I never rely on market research. Our task is to read things that are not yet on the page. Now, what this essentially means is, it's not saying it does not do market research. It says it does not rely on it, which means, I mean, this is not the only factor. So customers don't really know what they want most of the time. So which brings me back to, I'm sure you guys are asking questions in your mind. So what do I do? I mean, customer pain point. This is the tricky part. Now there's voice of the customer, which is what the customer wants. And there's a difference. So you need to understand the difference between voice of customer and customer insight. Now I made some, like, there are comparisons here. The customer will probably tell you, I want this button to be red, right? I want this button to be green. That's what you get from the customer's voice. Now, if you listen to the customer's voice alone, you might actually miss on the insights you're trying to grab. So, but on the customer insight part, it says, is the customer colorblind? Those are the questions you should ask yourself. So it's not, oh, because the customer wants red, let's give them red. I mean, the customer will probably want red, but your job is to really understand why the customer really wants this. So there's a difference. So I mean, okay, customer might probably tell you it must be within this price range before I pay or before I use this product. But then customer insight to say, is the customer interested in saving 50% more time? Because now what you're trying to do here is you're prioritizing. So if you're not interested in saving time, then they won't value that product. Now, if the customer is willing to save time, they'll probably pay for that product or pay for that service. I don't know if that's clear enough. So just understand the difference between what the customer wants and the insights you're trying to get. I mean, it's good to ask the question, or what do you? So don't usually ask your question with why. I mean, why do you want this? Why would you use this? I think tailor your question more towards, tell me about your experience. I mean, the last time you used this, what was your experience? Oh, the last time you did this. So like make it a conversation. Make it in a way, listen to the customer more. But at that point, but when you listen, you get more. So you try and listen to the customer. Shit. You try and listen to the customer and sorry, and get insight from that research. Now, there's another thing again. We make this mistake a lot. We ask leading questions. I mean, a parent would probably never ask, "Is my baby ugly?" Because they know that this open chance for a negative feedback. Because my child might look like Ashimolo, is it Oshomole? Yeah, Oshomole. And I'm asking you, is my baby ugly? You might be a Christian and you don't tell lies. And you just open your mouth and say, yes, your baby is ugly. Do you understand? So a parent will probably not ask that. But as researchers, we need to ask those difficult questions. Because if you ask somebody, is my baby cute? I hope my baby is cute. Because that opens up for more positive feedback because of the way you've aligned that question. So most times we really don't know how to ask questions when we are doing our research. We ask leading questions. Would you use this if you are giving discounts? I mean, yes, definitely. So don't ask questions that you already know the answers to. There should be space for that surprise. I mean, ask questions like you should be able to ask questions that may elicit negative feedback. Additionally, your desire for a positive feedback for a positive outcome can create an inherent unconscious and bias to asking leading questions. It is true because if you ask questions that you already kind of like know the answers to, you're just biased. You might say you're doing research, but you're not actually. You're just trying to validate your own assumption. You're trying to massage the ego for your assumption and be like, okay, yes, I said it worked. Yeah, customer wants this. So yeah, let's go to market. Let's push to market. Nah, it doesn't work that way. So don't ask leading questions. Ask questions that you know that could also provoke negative answers. I'm not saying you should always ask questions that will always give you negative answers. But I'm saying tailor your questions in a way whereby positive answers can come, negative answers can come. Like I said, ask probing questions. Now, this is where foundational research is essential. Now, let me explain. So, the role of foundational research is either to prove or disprove your assumptions as fast as possible. This requires leaving your bias at the door as much as possible. Now, I'll quickly make reference to this, but I don't want to dwell on it, right? There was an outrage on Twitter of somebody making a product and realized that there was an issue with the product after he had gone far with the product. Now, there are a lot of backlashing, which is totally fine in social media anyway. But then, most of the problems I could envisage from what they did is they didn't do any foundational research. Now, foundational research could be as simple as you just Google searching or asking up to clients. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's low cost foundational research. Because the thing is, if you can get your idea disproved at the early on, you will save yourself a ton of work and a heartache as opposed to you finding out later that it's a bad idea, which is exactly what those guys did. They found out later and they learned from it anyway, which is good. I mean, we keep on learning. But they didn't do that foundational research to really know, okay, are we really building the right product? I mean, this product is one thing for users to use it, but I mean, it's another thing for you to actually build the right product. I mean, this product, does it make sense to people? Does it make sense at all? Ask people, talk to people. It's it doesn't even have to cost a thing. You just talk to them and they give you a response, cheap response. And those things could just validate your ideas as fast as possible. So it's really good for us to actually do foundational research. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be crazy. I know there's the design thinking part that says, oh, do your prototype and something as fast as possible. But then it doesn't negate you from asking that simple question, that foundational research. Are we building the right product? So I'm sure you guys are like, yeah, what do you want to do now? Like, what exactly do I do, bro? I mean, so there's this spectrum. On the left side, it says low touch. On the right side, it says high touch. Now, when you're carrying out research, on so the way all these jargons are coming from the left is, so on the low touch part, which is low cost research, you have Google search, you have documented stories, you have stuff like that, very simple stuff. Because sometimes people will say they are doing research, but they are just Google searching. Now it is fine because those are low budget. It doesn't cost you a thing to Google to go on the internet and search. Do as much research as possible. Google is free of charge. I'm sure they don't bill you for Google. Do your Google search. Those are the low part. Now, the way user research work is there is no playbook for it. The approach for this product might not be the same approach for the next product. I mean, I can't tell you guys, oh, so if you notice from the beginning, I never said things. I'm not carrying it along. Do research, do empathy maps, do mind map, do this, create personas. No, all those things come up with complexity. As in, depends on how complex your what the information you're trying to get is. So I'm not really going to base my this topic. I never based it on all those things. I'm just trying to let you understand the foundational things you need to understand before you carry out your research. Now, there's Google said there's documented stories, which is you just sketching out, okay, what story, what exactly the story behind this particular application. There's there's quantitative data analysis. Okay, should we start analyzing data? Cheap stuff, questionnaires. Then the more it goes higher, like the more it goes towards the right, then that is more cost effective because now, and by cost I don't mean money, I'm just saying time, resources, stuff like that. And there's now user interviews. So if you're trying to ask like a simple question, you don't really have to do user interview for a question that can be Googled. So if your question is something that you can find on Google, you really don't need user interview for it. So it depends on the complexity of what you're trying to achieve at that point. If you check Google and Google is not giving you the answer, then you can move maybe towards the right. You can move to user interview. You can move to user test. The user testing is always the last thing. But then you can test early. There are early stage testing. I mean, I want to validate ASAP. But it depends on what, because at the end of the day, as designers, all we are just doing is transmission of information, data. I'm giving you information. I'm getting feedback from the customers, things like that. So you're trying to get information. So once you already understand the way the spectrum of research works, it will then become very easy for you to move to designing a great product. So after all that, what you just need to do is, so when you've done all these things, you've done your research, you've gathered a lot of research, what you now do, you now measure what you have learned. Now, if you remember from the beginning, I said there was a project goal. There was you aligning what the problem is. So the exercise I usually do is, before I tackle any product, is I create problem hypothesis on the left, I create solution hypothesis for those problems, because there's always a business goal, like I said, to solve a problem. Those are my assumptions as a designer. And in fact, those are the things that come from experience. Because the more you build product, the more you have more experience to understand what to do. Because the more experienced you are, the faster you have to think. So you can create solution hypothesis for those things. Now, like I said before, I said research is for you to validate or debunk your assumptions. Now, when you carry out those research, you now measure all the knowledge you've gathered, experiment it, and test it against those original assumptions you had, and see, does it make sense? Is this what the user like? Does this solve the problem? Does this, you get? Then you now iterate. That's when iteration comes. You now go back again to do research, or you can prototype, test with people, before you now get to you releasing your product. So your mission will always be orientated towards the market that you serve. Because, like I said, you need to hit the market. So if you are designing either a digital product or anything, these are all the things. I mean, people, you guys might have objections to most of the things I've said, but these are all the things I believe that has helped me, at least so far. And these are, I just feel like sharing it to you guys so that you guys, if you are struggling through building product and you find out that there's a failure in the things that you built and whatever, these are the things that you need to consider. You need to dial back and think about of everything I've said again. I mean, I'll share this slide so that you guys can check. I think so. This is my last thing. I said, great product make great first impressions. I've had people say, just launch the product, just put it out there first. We'll get feedback from people and use it to scale the product. Yes, that works. But then try and make sure, even if it's an MVP, which is the most valuable product, the minimum viable product, even though it is that you're trying to release out there, make sure that minimum viable product actually solves the problem. Make sure it actually leaves a mark on the customer because first impression matters. There are a lot of apps that I've downloaded. I downloaded the first time, I could not use it, I deleted it. Even though now, probably now they've improved that app, it is better, it is you might have they might have scaled the application, but I wouldn't know because the first impression had already made me cancel the application. And I had that same issue with this popular one that came out during the pandemic, House Party. It was a lot. Like I had to just delete the app. So maybe by now it's even better, but then I might probably not check it again. And that's what they call churn rate. I mean, I didn't finish. I abandoned it. Anyway, that's basically everything for tonight. I mean, I could have gone further into explaining more of the research, but I just thought that okay, let's talk about just the foundational part. I mean, the part where informs all you need to know before you build that product, before you carry out that research, before you release that product to the market. Those are all the tiny things you just need to know. So maybe next time I might probably go dig more into how to carry out user research in the zone. I mean, what are the things? Then we probably use like a product as a case study, maybe like the next Uber or the next spaceship or the next Tesla or something, and we dig more into it and I explain my process. Well, so far that's basically all I have for you guys, and I hope you guys actually learned one thing or two. Thank you. And you guys should follow me, I beg. Follow me on Twitter. I say a lot of nonsense on Twitter anyway, but I'll be bear with me. Anyway, that's basically it. I hope everybody's still on this call. Oh.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Who's that? Oh yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. You guys, a round of applause for my daddy. Ooh, like clap in the comment section. But yeah, thanks so much, Daniel. This has been very, very educating. I'm pretty sure that everyone that made it is very grateful. Um, if you guys have any questions, please ask him now. He's a fountain of knowledge. So yeah,
Please, the
like just ask
questions,
in the comment.
put them in the comment section, oh, I beg. So that I'll
Yeah,
just pick
like
about five or maybe three or something and address it. So I'll be scrolling through
okay,
the comment section now to see questions. So if you have any question, just post it. I'll choose randomly.
okay. So yeah, guys, ask your questions in the comment section.
Yeah, I'm going to the
Yeah, and the slides will be shared on the Ashako TV page, and I think Daniel will also share them on his page. So yeah,
please, who is Elon Musk? Is this,
judge you guys.
is this like the real Elon Musk or Nigerian Elon Musk? I'd like to join the Tesla team. I beg go. There's an opening. Let me see. I have five questions. Oh.
Also, before Daniel answers the questions, We'll be posting a feedback form in the comment section, so please check it out and please um give your feedback on what this session was like, what you liked, what you didn't like, how you think we can do better. It will help us to bring out more content, greater content for you. So yeah, I'll be posting that now. Yeah, okay. And Daniel, you have questions, lots of questions. Good luck, please.
Okay, can you help me identify the questions? Because I'm scrolling through like an endless pool of
Okay,
questions.
there's one that I see. Someone said, "How do you do a proper UX research when working with extremely strict timeline?"
Hmm. Okay, that's a tricky one. So extremely strict timeline. Like I said, I mentioned something. I said I think that's okay. Am I still presenting? I said something. I said so this is spectrum here. So because most times when we get those timelines, they usually come from product managers. We all know this. Sure, a lot of people know they can relate. Product managers will come and say, okay, we want this running as fast as possible. Now, um, user research is not exactly a standard. Like, I mean, a lot of people don't really know this. It's not exactly a standard. Like I said, user research mostly it's to validate assumptions. I mean, you might have immediately give you the thing about the good, beautiful thing about designers is immediately somebody gives you a problem, you already start thinking of the solution. Now, what I do is at that point when I'm thinking that solution, I document, I just write it down randomly in paper, anywhere. I write out all those problems and I start looking for, and I start carrying out my research just to validate or to disprove it so that I know that this problem is trash. I throw it in the trash can. So if you have a strict timeline, there's always something I say. There's a cost of research. There's always a research budget. So if there's no research budget in your product, then you might have to advise your the stakeholders to let them know. Okay, you know what? I mean, we need to do this, but there's no time allocated to research. So how do we do it? So what you can do is you can do the minimum, like I said, the minimum viable solution for it. The ones that you know that you can just Google search, you can do it. So if you know that, oh, sometimes they will say something, they'll say create, try and get users up to 100. I mean, I don't really believe you have to get, there's no standard for it. The more you dig, so the more you dig, it is for you to discover more information, right? To validate, maybe to validate or to get more information from people while you are building your product. Now, since it is not a standard, like I said, you can, if you talk to four people, because there's no amount of research that is enough, and that's the honest truth. You can do research for 2 months, you can do research for 6 months, and it might not still feel enough. So research is never enough, right? But then what we really do is that you need to, as a designer, this is where experience comes in. You need to be able to define, okay, what I have is enough for me to move forward. So if you have strict timeline, you can do the cheapest type of research. You don't really have to go into the crazy ones, the deeper ones. Now, like I said, the only reason you want to go into those deep ones, those complex ones, is because you need to find more information. Maybe, for instance, you've aligned all your high level requirements and you're trying to break out your high level requirement into low level questions. So you want to, like, I mean, you might say, okay, let's say you want to design an app that helps people move from Lagos to Abuja. I mean, that's an high level goal, which is mobility, transportation, moving people from here to here. Now, you might want to define low level goals like, okay, what are the factors that affect mobility? What are there environmental factors? Is there traffic issue? Things like that, rain, conditions, stuff like that, disability, stuff. So when you align all these things, you might want to know more about, oh, how do we solve for disabled people? So that's when your research start expanding. But then you might just want to just know, okay, I mean, what does it take for people to move from Lagos to Abuja, or maybe bike, bus, whatever, and you use that to inform your decision. I don't know if that makes sense because research, there's no standard for how much research you should do because, like I said, research is never enough. Research is not a one-time process; it's an iterative process. You get feedback, you iterate, you continue, you continue, you continue. Even though Google has released Gmail for years, they still do research on Gmail every single day, every single week, because research is never enough. But you need to understand when to move forward. Okay, I mean, I've done this research. This is enough for me to actually build the most minimum viable product. This is enough for me to actually tackle this problem. Then we get iteration later, we get feedback. So I don't know if that answers your question. If it does, I don't know. So more questions, more questions.
And we actually have a lot of questions in the comment section.
Okay, so just throw them to me. Let me quickly answer as much as I can before we go because I don't want to waste people's time anyway.
Okay. Hmm. When running a research on product design, how best do I create my questionnaire? Can I create it based on information I get online or assumption?
Your questionnaire. So I think this still aligns to what I'm saying. Questionnaires really is to get insight, right? To get is to understand maybe there's a particular information you're trying to get. Like I said, you define your high level questions and you define low level questions. Low level questions are more like clicking the more button. I want to know more about this. So I have my high level question. Oh, why do people kill people? Um, Low level questions could be how do we reduce gun killing? Since maybe gun killing is like the highest. How do we reduce crime? How do we reduce violence? So those are things. That's what really research is. So if you are creating questionnaires, make sure you are those questionnaires. If they are required to inform your design decisions. I want to know more about this. So let me create a questionnaire that gives me this. So there should always be a value to questionnaires or research or surveys that you're doing or user interview. There has to be a reason as to why you're doing it. So if you are just doing it because oh it's required, is the standard, let me just do research, it won't work. There has to be a reason for it. That's why sometimes you can even skip it if there's no need for you to know more. If you feel like all you have is enough for you to move forward. So yes, it could be something you're getting from the internet. It could be you talking to people, you want to know more about it. Or maybe you got some insight from the internet and you feel it's not enough and you want to know more about it. You can even do a Twitter poll. Just get quick ideas, quick insights from people. I don't know if that solves it. That answers your question.
Okay, another question. What alternatives? What are the alternatives when you can't access the target audience to conduct usability testing? Perhaps the target audience are very busy professionals like CEOs and so on.
Very good self. In fact, hold on. Give me 1 second. I want to quote something. But I read something today that says, where is it? Sorry. Give me a second. Okay, I think I found it. So they said something. They said, where is it? They said, get the customer in the room. Now you can't access people, right? And you need to perform usability tests. Now there are various ways to do it. So the thing about researchers, most of us, is we tend to sit down in our comfort zone and be like, okay, I'm doing usability test. But that's why some companies will require you to be a UX researcher. They will even say it's remote, but then they'll tell you it's remote, but we don't want, but you have to be in Canada. I don't know if you guys have ever seen job posting like that. And the reason is there are times when you need to actually leave your house and interact with people. Because so this particular book, they said something, they said visit people in their home, bring customers in and have them use your product in front of you. They said, have an empty chair in the room. Imagine the customer is sitting there in your next meeting. It's a gimmick that can guide thinking, but this works only if you have already done some of the above, which is visit customers, learn from customer service team. So you have customer service team and all that can really help you. Now, so I get your question. Your question is saying that how do you really perform all these things? But there are avenues to do all these things right now. You can do usability tests from your house self with people. They are busy CEOs. Plan with them. Set up a meeting. Use there's usertesting.com. There are platform for you to conduct remote usability test. And there's usertesting.com. There's this other one. Let me see. Let me drop the link on the chat now so that you can see it. There's inspectlet.com that you can use. Let me see. There is one. I'm dropping those links now so you guys can see them. User testing. So this, like I said, this is even a problem they solve because they ask. I'm sure they ask this question: how do we conduct usability tests with people that are not even there? So you can use all these platforms. Employ. You're creating a digital solution. Make sure your customers are comfortable. If you know that you can't go and meet them in their office, use this site, this product I said, or do a Google Meet call. But the thing about Google Meet is you can't really track customer because sometimes some of these applications help you do eye tracking, heat maps, and all that. So you can see the lag time between when the customer is thinking, those cognitive loads and all that. You can track it. So basically, that's how you actually serve. So even if they are busy, schedule a time. Go out to their office. Don't just sit down in your house all the time or in the office and say you're doing testing, you're doing research. Go out there, meet people, you're building an application for bankers, for people that work in the bank. Go out of your house and enter a bank. Ask questions. They'll probably not charge you for it. I don't know. They probably would. Nigeria is hot at the moment, but they most likely will not charge you for it. So talk to people, be free. But now don't talk to people anyway. Don't go because of Corona, please. Or you are going to talk to them, wear a mask, carry your sanitizer, hold your hand gloves and all that. But come on, don't just sit down at home. Go out there. I've traveled all the way from Lagos to Abuja for testing for research. I did last year, so it happens. Trust me. You can as well travel. So that's why I say there's research budget. Sometimes some people add it to their bill, some people don't. Some customers don't even know. So that's why in Nigeria they don't really know all these things. So you need to actually even educate the client or your client to really know all these things. So that's basically it. More questions?
Um, hold on. If I'm to work on fake projects, do I still need to set problem hypothesis? And if yes, on throw a bit of light on it. Also, how is user testing carried out before the product is put out? Because you said something about great products making great impression.
Okay. So if you are working on a fake project, right? The good thing about fake projects is it's not really, I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but then yeah, the calmest thing about it is you might not really get feedback because it is not a product, it's not an active product people are using. But then doesn't mean your product should not have context. I see a lot of applications online sometimes. Although I get it's good to actually practice daily UI, which shapes you as a UI designer. But then if you want to really go into the UX and you don't really have like a real life project or something, you can create. There's I think is it fake clients. What's the name of this site that gives you brief for you to work on? I don't know, fake clients or something. I don't know. Check it on Google. So you should also create problem hypotheses. I mean, if you are creating a fake project, it's fine. But then for you to develop the way you think critically, it's always good for you to look at that project as a real project. You get add reality to it. Talk to people randomly because you never know. So it's apart from even helping maybe like solving it might not really solve the problem, but it helps you think on your feet. It helps you understand how to carry out research. So please always define hypothesis, problem hypothesis, and align a solution hypothesis to it. At that point, you might not have a solution for the problem. It is fine. So when you do your research, gather your check side by side if this solution actually solves the problem. But the way you
Mr. Jeff Bezos, please stop whatever it is that you're doing. Daniel, you're muted if you can hear me.
so you tell me,
I don't know, you have enemies, man. Continue, please.
wow, so I just talk to myself since now. Okay. Anyway, just basically treat every project like my boss will say something. He keeps saying, look at every project on a larger scale. Sometimes you want to build just small stuff or maybe internal applications that we just use within the in the office. And my boss will say, I don't know, I'm sure one of my colleagues would probably be here. He'll say, always look at it in the look at it in the bigger picture. If you're going to create an application that is supposed to maybe take just 10 staffs at the moment, I mean, think of the bigger picture. What if they want to scale this application to the public? they want to convert this application to a SaaS product. I mean, I don't say you should create the application for 100 people, but give it an avenue to scale. Because if you create limitations in your application from the foundation, then it will actually give you a lot of problems when you're about to scale. Because you might probably have to redesign, right? So, but if you create an application in a way where it can scale, then you find that it becomes easy because now, especially when you're working in companies like Paystack or the likes that they might be dealing with 100 users today and tomorrow, next tomorrow, it has spanned up to 1,000 or 2,000. If you're working with them, you have to be thinking critically. Okay, I mean, what like futuristically actually, you have to think, okay, what if this increases to 10,000 users tomorrow? How do I paginate? How do I paginate this? Should I use front end? So that's why I say I keep saying things about designers should understand how code works and all that. You need to understand, oh, should I paginate on the front end? Should I paginate on the back end? Should I use an endless scroll? How is data received and communicated between server, third-party APIs, and all that? As a designer, I know all this things might sound like complexity for you, but then just understand it. Well, it won't take you any time. It might be 2 months. Just pick up a book on data structure and just read it. Understand how data is communicated. Go and meet one of your front end engineer friends. Tell him to teach you the basics of HTML. Understand the little things back JavaScript. Just understand. I'm not really saying go deep into building. And if you want to take it further, you can even build a product, a project, a simple project. It could just be a code application that just sends does form validation, send error back, blah 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 blah. It can even take you a year to build. Do it small, small. In that way, it will shape you to really understand how to tackle digital product as fast as possible. Because at that point now, you're not looking at it from a designer's point of view anymore. You're looking at it from also from an engineer's lens. Like I said, you are supposed to bridge the system model with the interaction model. Most designers, we are the interaction guys, how people interact with the product. But then the system, there's also a system model. And if you don't understand the system model, how do you create interaction from people? How do you create bridge the gap between the interaction for users and the system? So, fake project or not, make sure you just think of it as a real project. Tackle it like you tackle a real project. You never know. Somebody might read your case study or something, or just check your UI and just like it and invite you to Microsoft. Trust me, great things happen.
Okay, and final question. Well, I'm basically going to mix two questions in one. One, how do you document your UX process in such a way that it doesn't bore readers? So I'm guessing that's like case study, right? And two, what are the mistakes you would have avoided while starting out as a product designer? I think there's another question basically asking for advice for beginners. So yeah, that's
Sorry, I'm sorry. Can you start the problem? Just give it to me one after the other. The first one.
okay. How do you document your UX process in such a way that it doesn't bore readers?
I think I talked about this in my. When most people didn't attend the class, but then I said there's always a reason you are creating your UX portfolios or whatever it is. I mean, you have a target audience. You have people that you want to see it. So most times, if you are creating your portfolio to apply for a job, then you must understand what hiring managers need to see. You get? So you are because what people don't really do is they don't take their portfolios or their UX process as a UX project. So it's also a design project. So the way you tackle a design project, a problem, maybe you're working on a particular application, is the same ideology you should take to documenting your process as well. I mean, do people understand it? The same question you ask when you're creating your product, do people understand it? Can people get it? Is it usable? Is it readable? Is it this? Do people is the information clear enough? Those are the same things you should ask yourself when you're designing your portfolios or documenting your UX process because people need to understand it. Do you understand? So even if it might bore users actually, I mean, if I probably would not go to. I probably would read maybe fictional stories, literature or something. If somebody sends me a literature article, I'll probably get bored because I mean, I'm not that target audience. I don't care about it. There's no, I don't like it. But if somebody's really reading your portfolio, then it's good to tell a story. Because it should also be a story. So I don't think designing portfolios would be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel you should have a target audience actually. I mean, who are the people that you are really writing you're documenting the process for? Are you documenting the process for your fellow engineers or for your company, or you're documenting the process for other people or designers, or you're documenting your process for hiring managers? It depends. But one thing you should always do is either you're an hiring manager, you are whatever it is that you are. The major things people want to be able to assimilate, they want to be able to understand your process. So your process should be clear, good English. There should be a story behind it. Just things like that. So just treat your stuff as a design project as well. And you find out that it makes it easier for you. Next question.
Sorry. So yes, somebody said, or two people basically asked, like, what's one person said, what are the mistakes you would have avoided while starting out as a product designer? And somebody else asked, sorry, hold on. I can't find the second question, but second person basically asked like for tips on starting out as a product designer and UX, I mean user researcher. Yeah.
Um, okay, I think those are most of the things I talked about today. Foundational research. What else again? Asking the right questions. Understanding the user. But at the end of the day, the major thing you're really focused on is the customer and the business. Like I said, user need, business goal, sweet spot. Let me go back to my user need, business goal, and sweet spots. Really. Yep. So this is basically it. You are defining a problem. So either you are starting out as a researcher. Once you understand these basics, I mean, define a problem. I think that thing can be overemphasized, right? Just define the problem. Define the problem first. But most times, you might not really know the problem per se. Like I mean, in the entirety of it, this is where you get the help of the business owners as well because they are the one that own the product. They want to build something. What are they trying to achieve? Like I said something. I said, what does success look like? You should always have this at the back of your mind. I mean, because so you guys can give yourself a benchmark. There's always an eye on the price. It's like somebody going like footballers starting UEFA Champions League. They already know what success look like. I mean, if you win, you're carrying the cup, you are getting money, you are doing this. So that will now inform the process of every single thing they have to do to get to that. So there's eye on the price, and you now go through the challenges. So that's exactly the same thing design is. Understand what success will look like. Then how do we navigate to that success? It's like you driving and you on Google Map. Google Map will show you your destination, your Uber or Taxify. They show you your destination, they show you your current location, and they show you the path that you take. It could be descriptive or anything or conversational. And they show you all those things for you to get to the goal. So define your success, understand the problem first, define what success look like, and bridge the gap in between until you get there. So sometimes success is iterative, right? It might not really be a fixed constant. It might not be a constant rather. It might not be yes, this is what success is like. Success, in fact, success can even be defined in stages. Like I said, set project goals. I didn't say set a project goal. Set project goals. This. When we do this, we achieve this. When we do this, we achieve this. So you can break them. This is where, although this is job for product project managers most times because they set a goal and they kind of like align everybody to it and hold the people accountable to it. But then, as a designer, you should always set a goal for yourself. What are you trying to? What is your end result? I mean, if I'm doing research, there's a reason I'm doing research. You don't just do research because it's a fancy word and it makes me look cool. No, do research for a reason, and that reason should always be at the back of your mind while you're doing. So sometimes you might even write it on stickies, write it on stickies and paste it on your desk, so that you can always refer back to it because it's important, so that you don't miss your road, you don't miss I don't know, you just don't miss road. Let's put it that way. So basically, that's what I do, and that's I don't know. People might have other suggestions actually, but that's basically how I tackle project.
Okay, someone has basically like a personal question for you. What are some of the mistakes you would have avoided while starting out?
Ah, come on, plenty of football.
Oh,
But anyway, football. Mistakes, right? Mistakes are meant to be made sometimes, but the major thing is what you learn from it. So for me, I think most designers they are really confused, right? Like especially when you're starting out, you go out there and there are too many things online. I mean, resources are endless. The amount of articles that go on Medium every day, it is so much. And there's you enter Twitter and one person is talking about one thing, so is talking about the other thing, and it is difficult to block out the noise. So most time, what I would advise you is to actually get a mentor, which I think I did. Yeah. So a lot of people might not know this, but Tolu Saba was like my mentor when I started. So I was really explaining some things to me, like, oh yeah, this is what you should do. So I reached out to people, mentors overseas and all that, just to guide me in the right direction. Now, but I did that a little bit late, right? Because immediately I started, I just focused on UI. I didn't know anything about UX, and I had to work my way up. But then there are a lot of things I learned while I started. I thought it was the right thing. I had to unlearn. I had to relearn new things. So as a designer, this is really important. You need to also always know how to, you need to understand that knowledge is not constant. Knowledge does not just stick. I mean, things evolve, things change. The earth is cyclic, the earth change all the time. So you should always evolve with that change. So for mistakes, yeah, I can't really, I don't think I can categorically tell you that, oh, this is exactly what I've done. But I can really tell you that I learned a lot of things. But seeking out mentors or joining communities like Asha will really help you out. So because Asha has like design leaders and all that in the in Nigeria space, they are really good, and the people that can really guide you. You can pay for courses just to guide you in the path. Because I mean there are a lot of distractions out there. There are a lot of things that you learn today and you find that it is nonsense, and you can't find to get your way back. It's difficult. I have some things that still causes bias with me because I learned them from my foundation, and sometimes it it affects the way I think. But then I have to let go of all those things. But it was a gradual process. It wasn't something I just pushed immediately. So learn the basics. The advice I'll give you is learn the basics, understand the basics. From there, like I used to tell one of my friend, a close friend of mine, is if somebody brings up a project to you and tell you, oh, I want to build this, it might sound ambiguous at first. Oh, this is a project, this is really big. But then if you find out, if you really break those projects into pieces, you find out okay, there are a lot of things that encompasses a project that makes it a whole project. WhatsApp, there are a lot of things that makes up WhatsApp. I mean, there's chat. There's they focus on chat first. There's chat. There's video calling. There's this. There's that. There's cloud storage for your messages and all that. And all those things, it's if you really break it down, you find that these things are just tiny components that really makes up the big picture. So when I started, I was really focused on the big picture. Oh, I want to build this. So how do I do it? But then I had to calm down and look at things in a more from the lens of what they say. There's this thing they say, many trees is what makes a forest, or a tree does not make a forest, or something. So when you break it down into multiple trees, you find that an entire forest are just a combination of multiple branches and trees and all that, and makes up a forest. But if you can split them and take them one after the other, it will really help you.
okay. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for taking the time to educate us today. Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, like they can direct it to Daniel on Twitter. Daniel, can you put your social media handle on the screen again so people can see? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So yeah,
Yep.
if you have any more questions, follow Daniel and send him a DM. He's very nice. He will respond to you. I promise you. Yeah. Also, for people who are asking about joining the Asha Kuturi community, you can send an email to us. I've posted that in the comment section.